Oh man, this series today was not great. We got to watch the LA Thieves take on Toronto Koi, and it was not a pretty match. We lost 3-0. Just seemed like nothing was really working for the Thieves. And the frustrating part about it, I think, is knowing that we had about a month's time, maybe a little less than a month of a break between the last Thieves match and this one. And it really just didn't feel like the Thieves really improved at anything. Um, I know that there were a lot of things that the Thieves fans, myself included, were worried about with how the Thieves had played before the break. And obviously, one of the things that I had said before we went into the break was that we really only got to see the Thieves play, two or three matches beforehand. And they went 2-1. They still had a positive record, but we obviously needed to see some changes. We needed to see the subs probably playing a little better, knowing that Abizi was kind of up and down, didn't necessarily look great. And then you had Hydra, who was really not playing up to the standard that you would expect of him. And then on top of that, obviously, we were really hoping to see Kenny sort of bounce back and find a little bit of a rhythm, especially after there were the rumors of the Thieves picking up Neum, which I did talk about that in another video. But one of the things that I wasn't able to bring out in the previous video talking about it, because this news came out afterwards, was that apparently the Thieves only have access to Neum until shortly after Major 1, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me why they would pick Neum up at that point if they had no intentions of bringing him up. And the Ronnie Intel article made it sound like the Thieves were sort of just picking up Neum as a safety net. But if you only have him until slightly after Major 1, it sounds like they're going to use him. So obviously that seemed a little confusing. Now, I will say the way I feel about this does change after how this series just played out today. Uh Recording on the day of the match, obviously. Like I said, Toronto Koi won 3-0, and they just looked so much better than the Thieves did. The only map that was even remotely close was the Den Hardpoint, which was the map one. We played three Den maps for our only three matches, and the Thieves ended up losing the first one 250 to 224, where really the Thieves didn't look terrible to start off. Kenny actually had a decent start today, but then he kind of just dropped off pretty quickly in that map one. Ended up finishing the map with a 0.69 KD. Don't love to see that. But then the other thing was Beezy didn't look great today either, and he started off with a 0.85 going 23 and 27. Now, Scrap looked great, I would say. He's been the most consistent player on the side of the Thieves so far this year, and it's kind of interesting that we haven't seen as much consistency from Hydra. He did play better today. He started off the series with a 1.16 KD, going 29 and 25 in that map one. But there were just some plays throughout it that really didn't make a lot of sense. And if you watched the flank, you would see kind of how Octane and some of the other guys on the flank talked about specific situations on this Den hardpoint. And the reason I talk about them talking about it is because I obviously am not as good at Call of Duty as those guys are. They're ex professionals. They've done it at the highest level. They know a lot more about the game than I do. And there were some things that they were talking about throughout the map one and throughout the series that really just didn't make a lot of sense. Octane had mentioned that during the listen in for the Thieves, there was a moment where they called out that somebody on the Thieves was actually spawning in the back, which was a big thing for them because if they were able to play off of that, they probably could have taken advantage of, I believe it was the P2 hardpoint. But he said they gave the comm and then no one actually did anything about it. They didn't listen to the fact that, hey, we got a free spawn in the back, we got to take advantage of it, like that type of thing. And they just didn't do that. There was also another one where they calmed, let's relax, let's just go next. And then two people still chow old. So it's like they're giving these comms, but then they're not actually listening to what is being said or how to respond to it. And I don't understand where that miscommunication is happening, because I don't even know if you could call it a miscommunication. They're just not following what each other is saying. We'll get more into that though. The map two was Den S&D, where it actually started out pretty good for the Thieves. Scrap pulled out the sniper in the round one and got three pretty nice snipes. Pretty good clip. Honestly, the best clip that we got from the Thieves in this series today. He ended up finishing the map 8 and 7 with a 1.14, and then everybody else on the side of Thieves was negative. Kenny with a 0.57 in that one, Hydra with a 0.63, and then a Beezy with a rough 0.25. The only one negative on the side of Toronto Koi was Insight with a 0.5, and then Joe Deceives just absolutely had his way with the Thieves, dropping a 3.5 KD, going 14-4. He finished out the last round of the map with an ace, where the Thieves just did not check the outside of Dojo, where Joe Deceives was laying down, and he ends up getting a free two-piece off of that. Then I wouldn't say necessarily turns on Abeezy, because I don't think Abeezy had put any shots into him, but he he pretty much world starred him. We'll be honest. He pretty much starred him. That put Kenny in a 1v4, and he ended up having another really good kill onto Kenny, where, like I said, they closed it out with a 6-3 finish. And I was kind of disappointed in that, because I really felt like the Thieves S&D was kind of the mode that they actually looked pretty decent at, and that just wasn't the case today. They just did not look like they were on the same page, and Joe Deceives just had his way with us. There's really no other way to put it. The Overload was definitely the worst map of the day. It was bad, and I mean, I didn't expect us to win the Overload, knowing that the Koi are really good at that game mode. They are probably the best team in the game at that game mode right now. So I didn't have high expectations, and once we lost the first two maps, all of my expectations at that point were pretty much out the window. And sure enough, they ended up struggling in that one. There were multiple plays once again that were kind of just like, what are we doing? At the end of the half, we had control of the ball, and we were only down one at that point. So it really wasn't terrible. Actually, we might have been tied 0-0. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was overtime. We had the ball. They call in a hellstorm. And for some reason, the guy with the ball goes outside when he was already inside. He goes outside as if he's like jiggle peeking the hellstorm that's coming in, and it killed him. And it just goes to halftime when we were up on Koi's side of the map. This was like the farthest we had gotten pretty much the entire first half, and we have an opportunity to score. All you have to do is stay inside and not get hit by the cruise missile. And for some reason, we went outside and got hit by the cruise missile. Just really didn't make a lot of sense to me. And then the other stuff was the Thieves really heavily pushed the shingle side, or like the roof side of Den, instead of going to like the dojo side or even going through mid map. And there were multiple times that the Thieves would get several kills, be able to take up some space, and then they would wrap it back around to the roof side of the map. And it just didn't really make a lot of sense. Again, the guys on the flank were talking about it as well, that they were going to a side that they didn't have information on. They would get kills on one side, or they would get killed on one side, but then they would try to push somewhere else that they have zero information. That just doesn't really make sense. And with the roof side of the map, you don't have a way to cut back middle. So it's like once you're roof, you're stuck there. And not only that, but on the side that they were on first half, if I'm not mistaken, they had to push the harder side if they were going to go across the roof. And every single time Ultra was spawning, or Koi, sorry, was spawning on that side of the map because that's how the map is set up. That is where they're going to spawn most of the time. So the Thieves never went through Dojo really ever when they were trying to push that side of the map. And every single time they would play the side where they have to get multiple waves of kills, and they never got the multiple waves of kills. That's why the Thieves ended up losing this one 4-0. And once the old or the Koi, sorry, I keep for some reason I want to keep saying Ultra. Once Koi was able to get that same side, they did the exact opposite of the Thieves, but they were still able to score on the roof side of the map because they played it the right way. They had times where they cut across because that was the play to make. And like I said, if you go back and you watch the episode of The Flank, Octane even says the way that the Thieves played that side of the map is just objectively wrong. And I completely understand why he said that. It is so much harder to try and score the way that the Thieves were trying to score than if they would have just gone dojo side, where they have the opportunity to cut it back mid if they need to, or they can just go through the dojo side and get to like the, I don't know if you would call it like server room or whatever, where the point is to capture. They could have done that so many times and at least made it a lot more interesting, I would say. I'm not going to say they were guaranteed to cap anything because I don't know, but it definitely would have been a lot better for them to do that, and they just didn't do that. So that essentially brings me to the point of teamwork because the big thing right now is obviously Kenny, right? Kenny has been underperforming, and I'll be the first to admit that Kenny's not having his best his best time right now. I'm just gonna say time because it's been multiple series. He didn't have a good series today. He hasn't had a couple good series, but my thing that I feel like people are not understanding, and Nameless actually brought this up at the start of the match, is that everybody is kind of targeting Kenny, right? They're saying, well, Kenny is having a bad map, bad series, whatever. And he is, right? He's not having a good series by any means. But we're also not paying attention to the fact that our sub duo is not performing well at all. They are underperforming for what you would expect these guys to play at. Now, do I agree that if Kenny were getting some kills, maybe it would make things easier for the team? I do. I do agree with that. And that's where I think bringing in Neum at this point is almost a guarantee. I feel like at this point I would be more surprised if the Thieves don't bring in Neum based off of how this past match went and knowing that this was after a break where it felt like nothing really changed. Now, the problem that I have with it is more so I don't understand what we're going to do if we bring in Neum and nothing changes. Because I'll be honest, I won't be surprised if they bring in Neum and nothing changes. I said this on the stream today. I think that if the Thieves bring in Neum, we get a short term improvement, and within a major or two, we're back to the same problem that we're dealing with right now, where the teamwork just isn't there. And another thing that's concerning that I almost forgot, thankfully I didn't. Ben J brought up the fact that the Thieves are consistently late to scrims. I don't understand that. I really don't. Um, I think that to me sounds very much like an ego issue. Now, that might sound aggressive to say because I don't know what's going on. There could be reasons for why guys are late. But if it's a consistent problem for players being late, showing up to scrims, that doesn't sound like it's a problem that should be accepted. Um, Again, I feel like if it were something that was bigger than like the game that was causing these guys to be late, there would be some conversations with the other team saying like, "Hey, this is some of the stuff that's going on. This is going to make scrim times hard, et cetera, et cetera." You know what I mean? Like, um, if it's happening consistently, and we don't know how much, right? Because Ben J didn't really go into too much detail talking about how late the Thieves are, how often they're late. He essentially just said that the Thieves are one of the teams that is often late to scrims. And I just don't understand it because where at that point, where's the accountability? Where's the accountability of whether it's the coaching staff saying, "Hey, why are we not showing up on time to scrims?" That makes it sound like the coaching staff is allowing it to happen. Management is allowing it to happen. Um, Other players, why are other players not holding them accountable? Hey, we got to lock in. We got to be in time to scrims. We're not like uh, I'm sorry, you cannot be performing at the level you're performing at and show up late to scrims. Can't happen. It just can't happen. Um, as someone who has played sports, even though it hasn't been at the highest level, um, you can't not perform in games and then be late to practices and then be upset when you're not performing in games. You can't do that. That's not how that works. You got to show up to practice. You got to show up to practice on time. You got to show up with energy. And I get that, Slasher just recently retired talking about how much the the practice scene and how much practicing is just not it doesn't bring as much fulfillment. I understand that. I get that, right? But you're a professional, man. You get paid a lot of money to do this job. And look, I don't know who it is that's being late. I don't know if it's multiple guys on the team that are being late. But if I had to guess, there's a couple guys that I would assume. And I'm sure without me saying it, you guys are probably thinking the same thing. So, at what point does that get reeled in to say, "Hey, look, we're playing like shit right now, guys. We're not playing good." And you guys are talking about wanting to win championships. People are looking at us as if we're a super team and stuff like that. Well, your practice habits, the way you guys show up, the way you handle business is not championship caliber. That that just it can't happen. And somebody needs to call it out. There needs to be some type of I don't know. There needs to be accountability. There needs to be some type of accountability. And it just seems like that's not there. It seems like everything is going to be some type of scapegoat. Um I've had people already asking me who or I guess what do I think is going to happen with Kenny at this point? And if the Thieves need to make multiple player change, if they just need to change Kenny, all this kind of stuff. And like I said, I don't think that them changing Kenny and bringing in Niam is going to fix everything. I think people assume that because Optic was struggling last year and they picked up Merc and Merc happened to be a godsend to them, that that's just how every challengers player is going to be that comes into the league. And that's just not the case. Now, would I love to be wrong on that and have Neum come in and just absolutely fry for the Thieves and now all of a sudden everything seems to be clicking? Of course I would. Of course I would love that. I would hate to see Kenny go. I would hate that. But if it means that that was the problem and we needed to get things figured out and the Thieves start playing better, then I'll accept saying that I was wrong and that Kenny was the problem. Kenny needed to be let go and that was where everything was kind of going wrong. The thing is, it's starting to seem like other people are picking up on the fact that that is most likely not going to be the case. And I say that because for a while, everything was just Kenny, 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 Kenny. Now people are starting to say, hey, uh, Abizi and Hydra aren't really playing great either. What's that all about? Hey, the Thieves teamwork is not really that good. What's that all about? So the way I explained it on stream today was based on the talent alone that this roster has. You should be able to plug and play any professional and high level amateur like challengers level player into a Beezy, Hydra, and Scrap, and they should be winning games. They should. Because when you look at the talent that this Thieves team has, you look at it and you say, Abizi is one of the best SMGs to ever play Call of Duty, right? But I think most people would agree with that statement. Then you have Hydra, who is one of the best players in COD every year since he's joined the league, if not the best SMG in the league, just off of pure talent wise, right? Again, I don't think a lot of people would disagree with that. Then you have Scrap, who is arguably the best AR in the game, talent wise. And we're not winning games. I mean, we're 2-2, right? Like this is also what I said. I'm trying to not dive too far into this because we haven't even made it to LAN yet this year. We haven't even made it to a LAN yet. We're worried about all this stuff with online COD. But because of all the things that are being talked about right now and the way everything is being handled, I feel like it is so amplified at how this team is performing, and they are severely underperforming based on the talent that they have. I genuinely feel like you should be able to plug in just about anybody into Kenny's spot and this team should be winning. Now, where I'm mostly concerned is that they brought it up on the flank as well. If you move on from Kenny, Kenny is a winning player, right? Historically speaking, I should say. He is a winning player. He knows how to win. He has won. And he's done it on the biggest stage. He's done it with the best teams. Like, he knows what to do. He knows how to win. And he does a really good job in game of leading a team to help them try to win. Even if that doesn't show up in the stat sheet, even if that doesn't have to do with KD, all that kind of stuff, it still is an in-game leader job that he is really good at. And if you get rid of that and bring in a amateur player or a semi-pro player, however you want to put it, challengers player in Neum, do you really expect Neum to fill the shoes of Kenny when it comes to being a leader on a team right away? Because I'll be honest, I don't know enough about Neum to really make a judgment on that. I don't know what his exact role is on the Huntsman. I don't know. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I do. But the kills will only do so much for your team. You have a BZ, again, you have a BZ, Hydra, and Scrap. Kills should not be a problem. Kills should not be a problem. They shouldn't. Like, again, just based off of talent alone, that trio should be winning hard points. They should be winning hard points. And for some reason, hardpoint is, at least has been, arguably our worst game mode to start off the year. It doesn't make sense. And so to me, there's more of a team issue. So in my mind, going back, I went on a bit of a tangent. Going back, I feel like there needs to be a two-man change. And I'll be honest, one, I know it's not going to happen. I know it won't happen. The Thieves won't do it. It would never happen. A two-man change. I'm not going to say who. I have said who, but I'm not going to. It won't happen. It won't happen. And I don't think people would like who I think needs to be changed. And this is all just speculation, but my biggest thing when it comes to that aspect of it is, I'll just say, if you look at how last year ended, right? And again, I have no intel on this. So I don't know what happened. I'm going off of the information that I have and the information that I know, which is the same information that pretty much everybody else has. If you look at the way the Thieves ended last year, they were the best team pretty much all year going into the last two tournaments of the year, the two biggest tournaments of the year. They were arguably the best team in the game the entire time. Because even when phase one, major one, the Thieves could have won that event. They were literally one round away, one kill away from winning that event. So this team won back-to-back last year, was one round away from winning the first event of the year. And then their bad event that everybody was worried about, they still finished top 4. After that, they go on and they just bomb out of champs. They bomb out of EWC. And then we move on from Ghosty and Envoy. People were talking about the speculation of Ghosty and Hydra didn't get along, whatever it was, right? And it was just like, this isn't going to work. They move on. Everybody throughout the year, everybody, like, okay, maybe not everybody. A lot of people were talking about Ghosty needed to be dropped. Envoy needed to be dropped. Even before the Thieves won. Before the Thieves won any events last year, people were calling for Ghosty and Envoy's head. Well, guess what? The Thieves did that. And what's the first thing everybody started to say after this season started? I bet you can take a guess. Oh, the Thieves shouldn't have dropped Ghosty. It was so bad that they dropped Ghosty. Why'd they get rid of Envoy? They shouldn't have gotten rid of Envoy. Look how good they're doing now. Come on, man. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't sit here and say Ghosty and Envoy are the problem all year last year. And then when the Thieves actually move on from those guys, you sit there and say, "Man, how stupid was that?" That's not how that works. I I think the Thieves shouldn't have moved on, but they did. And the issue that I have is that those two guys moved on and they're flourishing right now. Now it's still early, things could change, things could change, but their teamwork looked on point when they started this year. And it's looked pretty damn good so far. I would say General Mates is a top 3 team right now. And Ghosty is arguably a top 5 player in the league right now. And look at where the Thieves are at. Look at the guys that they kept. And look at where they're at and how they're performing and how we're still talking about that they have teamwork issues, just like how we talked about they had teamwork issues to end champs and to end EWC. There's 2 people on that team that were on both. 2 people. So if I'm basing it off of that, it seems like it's got to be one of the 2. At the very least, it has to be one of the 2. On as a big reason why this is not working out. You can make your decisions on who you think is what, um, where you think these problems might stem. And I'm just gonna say, I think a lot of it is a lot more than statistical. I think a lot of people are gonna look at the statistics and say that I'm crazy because, you know, Hydra and Scrap statistically are the best players on the team. Financially, they're the highest paid players on the team, to our knowledge, which is pretty much none. Um, but I feel like this is showing that there's too many cooks in the kitchen. There could be too many inflated egos on this roster, and that things are just not panning out the way that they should. And if I'm being honest, I just wish there was a little bit more transparency out of the Thieves camp. I don't think there will be. I think we're really not going to know much about it. Um, and that's kind of frustrating. I almost feel like it makes it worse in some sense because as somebody who really wanted that roster to stick, and you know, knowing that we got rid of Ghosty and it seems like it wasn't necessarily on great terms, and seeing how this year is starting off, I'm starting to think about, okay, well, we have a lot of time left, right? So I don't want to think about it, but I can't help it. What happens if or when we lose out on Hydra and or Scrap? Then what do we do? Because we got rid of Ghosty, who could have been a franchise player for this Thieves roster. And I think before they picked up Scrap and Hydra, I think he would have been. But obviously, once you pick up 2 superstar level talents in Scrap and Hydra, unfortunately, that kind of means that you're going to build around them and get rid of the guys around them that, maybe don't mesh well. And I think right now we're starting to see how much that backfired because Ghosty is looking phenomenal. Joe Deceives looking phenomenal. Kremp looking great. And Nasty is solid. That Modern Warfare 3 team that we had, they're all looking pretty damn good right about now. And they were looking good to end the Modern Warfare 3 season. They looked really good to end the season. No one thought they would be as good as they were. And they finished the year placing top 4 at champs, where they probably could have gone farther. They really could have. And then they finish second at EWC in their first year together, and a year that had a lot of ups and downs, not as many as Cold War, but had a lot of ups and downs. And then we move on from them, picking up what was deemed as a super team by a lot of fans. And am I upset at that decision? No, I'm not upset at that decision. Obviously, you have the opportunity to get Scrap and Hydra, and you're going to jump all over it, right? But the frustrating thing is now when you look back and you see how last year ended and how this year is starting to go, it's just like, man, what happened? Like, what happened that was so bad in this camp that we went from being the best team in the league last year and got rid of a lot of good talent to have the team that we had last year just to blow it up, just to now move on from it. Getting rid of Ghosty and getting rid of Envoy. Now we pick up Kenny and Abizi, which don't get me wrong, Abizi is a great talent to pick up. I would have loved to continue to have Envoy on this roster, but Abizi is one of the best, you know? Um, and with Kenny, I really thought that based on, like I said, the trio that is around him, he wouldn't need to do much. He shouldn't have to do much. He should be able to be the OBJ guy and to give out the call outs and be the team leader. And that should be enough for this team, for the talent that they have. And it's obviously not the case because there's more issues than maybe what we anticipated. I don't know. I have a lot of frustrations with this LA Thieves team. I really do. If you haven't been able to tell, I've been rambling on now for 30 minutes, so I apologize if this is going to be a long video, but um, I have a lot of opinions on it, and I feel like I could really talk about it for a while because I love this Thieves team. I want to see them succeed. I want to see them succeed bad, and I love Kenny. I love the team that we have. I would hate to see Kenny go. I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to end up moving on and we're going to pick up Neum and see how it goes. But I just I just don't understand it, man. And I think there's some frustration towards the coaching staff as well because what are we doing? How is this happening? Like I said, if we go back to them saying that the Thieves are fairly consistently late to practices, what are the coaches doing? And then you go back and you look at some of the ways that the Thieves are playing. You talk about like what Octane said on the Den Overload, and the way they're playing is just fundamentally wrong. Like the way they're trying to play just doesn't even make sense. Logically speaking, it doesn't make sense. How is the coaching staff letting that happen? Even Octane called it out. You got Sender and Shane, like these are top tier coaches. What's going on? You know, it just doesn't make sense. And like I said, I don't think we're gonna get any clarity, and that's what makes it even more frustrating for me. You know what I mean? I don't know about anybody else, but that makes it more frustrating for me. And to put icing on the cake, we're getting no content. We don't even have an intro video. The team doesn't even have an intro video to go into matches. What? Come on, man. Like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I like I said, I love the team. I love the organization, but like I feel like something needs to be done. Something needs to be figured out because I mean, this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I've said it multiple times on stream. You can't be losing and not doing content. You can't. If the Thieves goal is to be a winning franchise and they don't want to worry about content as much, you have to win. You have to win. And I get that it's a lot easier said than done to just win, right? Like I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, well just win games, Thieves." But like you can't have what seems like some of the egos that this team has or some of these players have and completely miss out on content. We're not doing any content at all. And these fans, including myself, are not asking for anything special. We're not asking for anything special. And I'm not even blaming it on the content staff, right? Because I know some of the people that are behind the scenes, and I have a lot of respect and appreciation for them. And I know that they're doing what they can with what they have. I know that. The problem that I have is more of the team has openly said they don't want to do content. They don't want to do content. And I just feel like as a Thieves fan, like I'm starting to see people almost like I'll just say strongly dislike the Thieves and the LA Thieves, not only because of some of the players that they pick up, some of the players they drop, and the fact that there's no content, the way the players handle the fact that there's no content, and the way that they handle the fact that they're not winning. I think some of it is maybe a little too much. I think some of it's maybe a little aggressive, but it just sucks to see because I think this team is, I mean, again, I love the team so much, and to see how much people just strongly dislike this team for a variety of reasons that I feel like are absolutely controllable. Um, it just sucks. It does because I want to see it succeed. I want to see the Thieves succeed. The whole reason I do this channel is because I love 100 Thieves. I love the LA Thieves. And I love Call of Duty. I want more fans to enjoy the Thieves. And the Thieves are making it so hard to do. So hard to do. Like I said, I don't know. I really don't know where the Thieves go from here. Um, and again, I'm talking very specifically about the LA Thieves, not 100 Thieves as a whole. Um, but it just it confuses me, man. It does. That I think that's the bottom line. Um, but yeah, I'd expect to see Neum in probably within the next couple matches. I would honestly be more surprised at this point if they don't bring in Neum. And hopefully he can help turn things around for the Thieves. And like I said, hopefully I'm wrong in my assessment that I think bringing in Neum is not going to change the way this team performs just overnight. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be a lot more than kills that the Thieves need to work on in order to see some improvements. But we'll have to see how it goes. They have some tough matches up next. I believe their next match is against Optic. And man, that's not a good place to be when you're already 2-2. Thieves are more than likely going to start in losers bracket after this online split here, and hopefully they can just start to figure things out. Like I said, there's a lot left in this year, and I try to keep a positive outlook. I know I just went on a tangent for probably close to 40 minutes now at this point, but um, I still have faith in this team, and I think if they do stick with Kenny, I still have faith in him. I still have faith in this team, and if they don't, I hope Kenny goes somewhere else and blossoms, and shows what Kenny is made of, because I think he deserves it, man. I really do. But that's kind of all I got on this. I say all I got as if I didn't just ramble forever. But yeah, that's gonna do it for the video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I know this was a bit more of a negative video. We got a little bit more of a rant here, but I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on the situation in the comment section down below. Um, what you think the issue might be, what you would do, how you would change some things, what you hope to see, all that good stuff. Let me know what you guys think, and be sure to like and subscribe. I hope to see you guys in the next video, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Peace out, everybody.